and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thanks for staying with us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Pain in the upper abdomen could, among other things, be an indication of peptic ulcer infection, a fairly common disease among people of all ages in the country. It can be described as a break in the lining of the stomach, the first part of the small intestine, or occasionally the lower part of the esophagus. It could also be acute or chronic and is the end result of an imbalance in the lining of the gut caused by defensive and aggressive forces. The actual prevalence rate for the condition is not known in Nigeria, but was ranked high some decades ago. On the show with me is a gastroenterologist at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Idi-Araba, Dr. Ganiat Uyeleke. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mary. Good to have you here.
What are these aggressive and defensive forces, and or should I say, what causes a break in the gut lining?
Okay, let me just start by telling what peptic ulcer disease is. Like you rightly said, is a sore or a break in the lining of the mucosa of the stomach, of the lower esophagus, or the upper part of the small intestine, which we call the duodenum. Now, why this happens is because of the imbalance between the aggressors and the defense mechanism. The aggressors to the intestine or the stomach would be acid. Acid is the most common aggressor, while what helps to defend or prevent these aggressors from working mucus secretion, bicarbonate secretion, and even the lining itself, the thickness of the lining of the mucosa. So once there is imbalance, meaning that the aggressors overpower the defense mechanism, then there is erosion of the lining of the mucosa of either the lower esophagus, the stomach, or the duodenum, resulting into a break, which will result into a sore and, of course, an ulcer, formation of an ulcer.
Okay, so what we are saying in simple English is the acid overcomes whatever is trying to neutralize it,
yes,
and then there's now a break in the lining.
Correct.
And it could look like this, what we're seeing on the screen. That's yes, like a sore, right? This is in the stomach, right?
Yes.
So this is gastric.
That's gastric. So if it's in the lower esophagus, it's called esophageal cancer. If it's in the stomach
esophageal ulcer.
Ulcer, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So esophageal ulcer. If it's in the stomach, it's called stomach ulcer or gastric ulcer. And if it's in the upper part of the small intestine, it's which is the duodenum, it's called the duodenal ulcer.
Okay. So what would the symptoms be of these ulcers?
Okay, so typically the most common symptom is pain, and the pain could be described as burning, or so some would say they have a heartburn. The pain is in the abdomen, particularly the upper part of the abdomen. Sometimes it could be around the navel, or it could be all over, but typically it's the upper part of the abdomen, which we call the epigastric region. Sometimes it's towards the left side, which is where the stomach proper is located. We say it's around the left upper quadrant, which is the left upper side of the abdomen. So that's the most common presentation. Some people do not experience this pain.
They have an ulcer without the pain?
Yes, it can happen in some cases. Some could have like bloating, so that's the feeling of fullness in the tummy. So they complain that even they take very little thing, they are bloated. Okay, so let me add to the pain. So the pain usually could come either before food, after food, or sometimes even at night. For most of the people we see, the pain actually wakes them up in the night, or they have it early morning. So you could also have bloating, which is the fullness, the feeling of fullness in the tummy, even if you've not eaten or maybe you've taken very little meal. Some would experience signs of the complications. Okay. So the signs of complication or the symptoms of complications could be intense or sudden onset severe abdominal pain. Some would have weight loss, anorexia, or even weakness. Anorexia is the feeling of not wanting to eat, loss of appetite. Okay. You know, so there is a mix of the way the people could present, either from just the symptoms of the ulcer or symptoms of complications of ulcers.
Is it just, a quirk of nature, or, a tendency that somebody would be having such an imbalance in the body? I would assume that the normal thing would be the acids are present to help with the digestion.
Yes.
And then the body takes care of whatever has been secreted and everything is okay. But some people do go on to get imbalances. Is it because they have a tendency or they've done something wrong?
Okay, so at this point, I think we should understand what are the things that can cause it, because it is not everybody that will develop peptic ulcer. So the typical or the most common cause in our environment is an infection caused by Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori is the name of a bacterium that usually we ingest unknowingly from contaminated food.
So that's an outside aggressor?
Yes. So that is there and is adding, it's what actually causes the imbalance.
Okay.
All right. So typically in the normal setting, everything looks great, but there has to be something that is either a risk factor or a predisposition or something causing the aggressor to be more aggressive or the defense to be not playing out as much as they should.
Okay.
All right. So typically we have this H. pylori infection, which is the most common cause. It's really highly prevalent in Nigeria. Another cause is use of certain medications. So there are some drugs that we use for pain and analgesics. We call them non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So examples could be ibuprofen, aspirin, cataphan, Aleve.
All prescription drugs?
Yeah, so some are prescription drugs, some are over-the-counter medications that can readily be purchased from anywhere. I mean, they hawk it on the roadside, you know. So we have that as also a very important cause. There are some other group of we call them risk factors. They're not direct causes, but they put the person at a high risk of developing peptic ulcer. So we have someone with heavy alcohol consumption, someone that that smokes heavily, certain illnesses, maybe if you have chronic disease of the liver, of the lungs, of even the heart, suppressing the immunity and contributing to all this. There's some other drugs aside even the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. People on high-dose steroid use, for example, some people on blood thinners. So those are things that they're not direct causes, but they are risk factors to developing peptic ulcer disease.